Yes. Hello, my beautiful friends. What an amazing day it is. Welcome back. We have a tremendous live stream planned ahead. We've got bombshell documents now released from the White House showing how corrupt the FBI actually is, especially under James Comey. They were orchestrating an entire investigation against President Trump, knowing that it was completely illegitimate. We already knew this, but now we can put the facts on paper. And we're going to go through the documents that were dropped today, newly declassified, on the White House website. They gave us a summary and attached everything that we need to see to understand exactly what they did, including text messages from that piece of garbage, Peter Strzok. So we're going to talk about that. We'll go through everything that is inside and unpack it all here together, and then move on to some election news, because in Minnesota, we've got a case that's going to the Supreme Court of the state out there that has been filed against Minnesota by Minnesota. We've got a city who's suing the Minnesota secretary, saying, we want to conduct our elections according to, Minnesota law, and they're not allowing us to do that. So now we're suing. Hopefully the Minnesota Supreme Court steps in. And some good news on the SAVE Act. Apparently base Mike Lee is saying we've got some effort and momentum there that may carry this thing forward to advance to a vote. We'll see if that happens. And then lastly, we're gearing up for the Fauci contempt hearing, which is taking place tomorrow. And we've got a new state subpoena that has now been filed today. Got the details on that queued up, courtesy of Florida. And that will not be covered by the pardon if that leads to some potential criminal charges. We've also got the the Senate resolution from Rand Paul queued up so that we know exactly what's going to be happening tomorrow morning. And more reaction from James Uthmeier out of Florida and Rand Paul, the man himself. And so we're going to have a tremendous show. Thank you for joining us. I hope your week has been outstanding thus far. Still no baby. We're getting closer. We're getting some action and some movement down there in my wife's beautiful belly, but not yet. No baby here yet. And maybe we'll have something by the end of the show. We'll have to wait and see. But looks like the tubes are connected. Thank you for joining and subscribing and all of the things. We're glad to have you here. And now, since it's working, let's get right into it, because we got some good business to talk about here today. Bombshell declassified documents now released by the White House showing just how corrupt James Comey, Andy McCabe, Peter Strzok, and the rest of the criminals out in that FBI were. They orchestrated a full-blown investigation into their own commander-in-chief because they were so mad that James Comey got fired. We remember Trump came in and got rid of this corrupt piece of garbage very early in his administration, and the FBI went into a full-blown anti-American insurrectionist type of effort to take him out. We've got all the documents here queued up, and we'll take a look at each one of these various documents that's now been released and declassified, courtesy of the new FBI, ranging all the way back from 2017. We've got text messages here of Peter Strzok, and we have this shocking interview of William J. Barnett, who walks us through specifically exactly why this was so perverted. He says specifically there was a culture inside the FBI that was all about get Trump. And so we'll get through all of that. We'll see what else is inside these materials, including the declassified annex. We've got notes here from the former CIA director called John Brennan, and notes about Michael Flynn as well. And so a bunch here to unpack together. But the White House announced this today and said the following, that these were newly declassified memos that shows the FBI under Comey and the remainder opened a criminal probe specifically targeting Trump in May 2017, even though the FBI had evidence that overwhelmingly showed at the time that he was not colluding with the Russians. All of this now getting released. Here's James Comey, one of the worst, saying in an article by John Solomon, who's now a special government employee with the FBI to unpack all of these major problems, said they specifically targeted Trump even though they knew he was innocent. Now, here was the background on this. So remember back on May 9, 2017, Trump fired Comey. He sent him this letter. He said, "Hi, Director Comey. I have received the attached letters from the AG and the deputy AG recommending your dismissal, that you be fired. And I have accepted their recommendation. And guess what? You are hereby terminated. So pack your bags effective immediately and get out. Now, while I greatly appreciate you, Comey, informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless concur with the DOJ that you're not able to lead this bureau effectively. Now, it's essential to find new leadership that restores trust and confidence. And so I wish you the best of luck in your future endeavors, which we would never say something like that about this guy. But here was the other attached letter. So remember Jeff Sessions, who also turned out to be basically useless. He was the one sending this over to Trump. He said, "Hi, Mr. President, as AG, I am committed to a high level of discipline. And based on my evaluation and for the reasons that have been attached, I've concluded we need a fresh start over there at the FBI. This guy needs to faithfully and legitimately actually follow the principles of the DOJ and the FBI. And so I recommend that you remove him." And remember that Comey was also leaking to the media. We've covered that ad nauseum here. All of the various documents and stories that he was passing on to his college professor lawyer, who then parlayed that on and passed it on to the media, doing it repeatedly and no actual repercussions for him at all. In fact, the FBI opened up investigations into themselves. Where are these leaks coming from? They were all coming from Comey, and they couldn't find them. And then they closed the investigations and said, well, we don't know where it's coming from. We're the FBI. I guess that's the end of that. So now all of that sets the baseline. The White House is now explaining there was overwhelming evidence, and we're going to go through it, that showed at the time there was no collusion with the Russians at all. And if you remember, you rewind the clock back to the first term, every stinking day that we got on Life, we got to hear from Jake Tapper and CNN and Rachel Maddow and all these people consistently screaming at us, Trump-Russia collusion. It's the epitome of lawfare in this massive complex that connects the media to the various institutions. And they were telling us every single day that the Russians stole the election. Here, though, we see that these are new internal FBI memos that show none of that was true. And they had a new code name. They called it Oxford, and they spelled it wrong for some reason. Maybe because if somebody would have gotten a hint about this new operation and they submitted a FOIA request for Oxford, with the O instead of the E, maybe it would show up in a FOIA request. But all of this was launched, okay? Comey, as I showed you, just got fired on May 9th. And so what did they do? They turned around and opened up a probe into the president, their own president, on May 16th, saying that maybe the firing was a result of the Russians. Trump was beholden to them, and that is what caused him to fire Comey. So the goal of the investigation here, they wrote, is to determine if Trump was directed or controlled by the Russians, and to seek whether or not Trump obstructed or was involved in a conspiracy to obstruct any FBI investigation by the firing of Comey. So there's essentially nothing that Trump can do. Okay, if he keeps Comey installed in there, Comey keeps leaking to the media. Comey helps set him up anyways, like he did by essentially approving the 2017 ICA intelligence community assessment that had the Hillary Clinton propaganda tucked in the back of it that was used to basically allege that the 2016 election had been stolen. So he keeps the same bad actors in place. They will continue to undermine him. He fires them. They still blame the Russians. No matter what happens, you are a Russian agent, is what we've got going on in our intelligence communities. So they sent a memo out. We'll take a look at these kind of one by one. And here was the first one that was opening this whole thing. So back on 5/17/2017, Trump just takes office, just beats Hillary Clinton, shakes all of their faith in their election rigging completely loose. And they say the following. Now, on May 16th at 12:30, acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe, because now Comey's fired, and Andy McCabe is another guy I believe belongs in jail, he made notification to Rod Rosenstein that we're opening this case. This verbal briefing serves to comply with the defined notification requirement. So he kicked this whole thing off immediately. Comey's gone. The number 2, Andy McCabe, comes in. He unleashes a weaponization of the FBI. Then we get another one on the 16th. This is a follow-up, or actually, preceding the 17th, but says here at the assistant director of the FBI's counterintelligence division, following consultation with FBI lawyers, the FBI is opening a full investigation based on an articulable factual basis. You're going to see this is all made up, that reasonably indicates that Trump may be or has been involved in activities on behalf of the Russians. All right. Wild. Saying this could be a breach of criminal law. And so the goal of this investigation, he just took office like 4 months ago, is to determine if Trump is controlled by the Russians in a way that breaches American law. Now, in addition, this investigation will also seek to determine whether Trump and others obstructed the FBI by firing, essentially, Comey. So the FBI is now predicating the investigation on criteria set forth in Crossfire Hurricane by the same group of hacks, Peter Strzok and others, that they got during the course of their investigation. Here's what we also see. So in the run-up to the election, remember, Hillary Clinton had her disastrous email problem. Her emails got hacked because she had clintonemail.com. She had all of her servers and hard drives in the bathroom of a basement somewhere. And somebody got their hands on them and started leaking them, and it was a disaster for her. And then, of course, Comey came out and said, well, even though there was a bunch of classified material in there, we're not going to prosecute her, gave that entire stupid little press briefing. She's still mad about that because of the fact that she thinks that may have caused her to lose this thing because people realize what problem Hillary was. And so they now need to strike back. So Hillary Clinton needs to instigate a Russia collusion hoax saying Trump's involved with the Russians, it's not me, to take some of the pressure and the heat off of her. So then in May 2016, a named member of the Trump campaign team indicated that he is knowledgeable that the Russians made a suggestion to the Trump team that the Russians could assist the Trump campaign with an anonymous release of information that was damaging to Hillary. And according to the intelligence community, Russian intelligence hacked the DNC. So now because they hacked the DNC, that automatically makes Trump complicit as early as July 15 and got access all the way through June 16. And that Russia intelligence also gained email access to senior Democratic Party officials and political figures like Hillary. But they got to now blame Trump for that. Okay, the fact that they got hacked has nothing to do with the president. He didn't hack them. The Russians did. But now, since there's bad information that could be used by Trump against Hillary Clinton or used by the Russians, either way Trump gets it, now Trump is complicit in the hack, and now he's controlled by the Russians. So we assess with high confidence that the Russians got DCleaks.com, they passed it off to WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, and then publicly released all of it. Now, according to multiple open source reports, so this is stuff on the internet, Trump intervened in the GOP platform and had a position on Ukraine. And through this intervention, Trump campaign members were able to amend the GOP to change their position on Ukraine. Okay, this is before the Russia-Ukraine war by years. This is in 16 and 15. So then Trump comes out and says, well, maybe we'll actually just give appropriate assistance and we don't actually have to give the Ukrainians, even back then, lethal defensive weapons. And so the FBI, Andy McCabe and others, say that this platform change, the fact that Trump changed a policy, which he's allowed to do, would be favorable to Russian interests in the annexation of Crimea. So immediately after the RNC, then Trump and Paul Manafort denied any involvement in softening the language. But following the debate, then another policy advisor did change it and advocated for less protection of the Ukrainians. And so that means automatically Trump is colluding with the Ukrainians. And we've had a lot of concern, of course, about America getting involved in that conflict, because it really is a proxy war with Russia. And that's a pretty big problem if that turns into a hot nuclear war. So Gordon's post-inauguration comments to CNN are supported by the FBI. And long story short, they're saying Trump has ties to Russia, real estate, assets over there, ties to foreign business oligarchs and more. And so we want to know whether Trump was impeding the investigation into him by firing Comey. Starting on January 28th and continuing through at least April 17, Trump had multiple conversations and one-on-one meetings with James Comey. He asked for Comey to be loyal to him, stop leaking, stop covering up for Hillary Clinton. Remember, she had the Steele dossier, which we're going to come back to, which was a campaign piece of propaganda that said Trump got urinated on by Russian hookers and was basically beholden to them because they had compromise on him. Then she passed that on to various entities, and they used that in their intelligence assessment to say that Trump is, in fact, now beholden to the Russians and that they interfered in the election. Ask Comey to publicize the fact that the president was not subject to an FBI investigation. Ask Comey other things. So they're saying all of that is obstruction. So the rationale is saying that Trump was acting on clear recommendations. There was a televised interview and more. This is all made up, essentially, as you're going to see. So that's where this whole thing kicks off. Now, the White House comments on this. They say there was a memo that was written by James Baker and William Priestep that made clear concerns about Russian influence. Why? Because Comey just got fired, and then said that we have to launch the probe, which they did. The FBI then marked the investigation a sensitive investigative matter and declared that it was the least intrusive method to investigate a national security risk. But that decision proved anything but non-intrusive. What did they do? Well, they gave it over to Robert Mueller. We spent 2 years on that with Mueller, who was about as big as an invalid as Joe Biden was, brain largely broken, as we all got to see on public display when he testified. They then unleashed a 2-year probe, and every night on TV, Trump-Russia collusion, courtesy of Jake Tapper, who never apologized for that. We also then got the Mueller report. Of course, no wrongdoing there. In the Mueller report, after 2 years and millions of dollars, there was a subsequent investigation by John Durham, who basically failed everybody. He said in his report that there was no basis for the FBI to even open up the original Crossfire Hurricane investigation. So now this newly declassified memo showed that the case was closed on April 9th, 2019, a few weeks after the Mueller's probe was sunset, and again said the special counsel provided the AG with a confidential report explaining his prosecution and declination decisions because there was no evidence in there at all. Now, the memos now are being released as federal prosecutors in Florida, this is the grand conspiracy case, reportedly investigate whether the FBI and the DOJ and intelligence agencies engaged in an ongoing conspiracy to violate the civil rights of Trump, his followers, and were using repeated criminal investigations with no basis at all in order to launch these attacks. And we've seen this before, okay? They did the same thing in 24. Now, it's well known that the FBI wanted to investigate Comey's firing, saying that that was obstruction. But records would later show that Comey was fired on the merits. Why? The DOJ thought that he mishandled Hillary Clinton. And they would also say that in his investigation of Hillary, where he basically changed the language in his memo, remember, it was like the statutory language that would have led to Hillary Clinton being charged with crimes for classified documents like the president was something like, careless disregard or, reckless disregard is a common phrase in criminal law. Hillary Clinton exhibited a reckless disregard. And so what did James Comey revise it to say? He said, she was just being extremely careless. And extremely careless is different than reckless disregard. And so therefore it doesn't meet the statutory threshold. And so Hillary Clinton can't get charged. So he came out, gave that press briefing. And so they fired him as a result of his terrible work. Now, the new FBI memos identified and now declassified by this task force reveal for the very first time that the FBI predicated the obstruction case against Trump and gave it a code name, saying that Trump was actually working for the Russians. But previously released records show that the notion of Trump being a Russian asset was not legitimate. In fact, the lead agent in Crossfire Hurricane, Peter Strzok, texted his colleague the same week that Oxford Comma was opening this new investigation, saying, I think there is a no-go there, okay? A big no big there, rather. Strzok said the following in the text messages, and here's what we've got. So in this transcript, we see Peter Strzok in the inbox section sending messages to Lisa Page, his FBI lover. These two people were working hard to stop the president, saying, and even before this all happened, they were trying to take Trump out. FBI special counsel Lisa Page, all of this taking place May 19, 2017. So Strzok sends to her, Strzok will be in inbox. She replies back in the outbox, and here's their conversation. Peter says, and that's what I wanted to talk about. My answer is no way. Special agent in charge, then AD, then lead the division. So work up to the assistant director, then lead the division. And Strzok says, and then I think, ... a case which will be in the history books, a chapter much like you tell me about my extra time in the field and all the cases. You know, you've asked me, would you trade it? 1 million people sit in the AD and staff jobs. This is a chance to do. And it may be the most important case of our lives, says Strzok, because they're going to go take out a sitting president. This is, again, May 19, 2017. So question to Lisa. What did Andy say about blank going? And then she says, no way, dude. I really don't think you should do it. Peter says, you would obviously excel on the team in 1,000 ways. They need someone exactly like you. And remember, these two were lovers, okay? They were, indicting each other repeatedly, even though I believe both were married. So she responds, and he glazes her up. It's pretty pathetic. He's a pathetic man. But outbox from Lisa back to him. Well, I don't really know what she meant when she said, on the team. Is it full-time or part-time? I got home, so our convo was cut short. Question, why? I don't understand why they need me for when they have someone like Aaron or blank or blank. And she says, and blank also paid some really outrageous compliments to me. I just don't get what she even means. She's like, fishing for compliments. So he says back, okay, I obviously want to hear what blank said. She says, I won't be able to repeat it. Something about being the second smartest lawyer she ever worked with besides Comey. It can't be true. And how I lean in and have a stronger work ethic than anyone else she knows and more. But I don't remember. I'm so amazing, says Lisa. He responds, he says, baby, listen, you're in an entirely different class than these two, okay? You see the future, my love. You assimilate and combine things in an uncanny way. Pfft, gay. And regarding your attorney image of yourself, Peter says to her, that's because you equate brilliant lawyer with blank or Tricia sitting in a room writing something as a clerk. Real law is the application in a complex, dynamic environment, and you're astoundingly good at that. Plus, you have passion and curiosity, which is more than half the battle anyway. Gosh, she says, I am so not in a different class from blank and blank. That is crazy. She's like, but I'm pretty hot, though. He says, they don't get the picture like you do. Blank is operationally amazing, but scaling law up rapidly with agility is something that makes you special, Lisa. That's the mark of a brilliant mind. What a dork. So for me, he says to her, in this case, I personally have a sense of unfinished business. Oh, so you're targeting the president. So you really got to really close this out because you were also texting your lover before Trump won that we will stop him when you were launching your Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Says, unleashed it with MYE. Now I need to fix it and finish it, says Peter. She says, well, what does that even mean? Scaling up. She goes back to fishing for compliments back up here. She says, you shouldn't take this on, okay? Like this case, he's going hard on this case. I promise you, I would tell you if you should, but don't continue to try to get Trump. Peter responds to her, he says, listen, baby, it means you can see a small point of law and know it, rapidly understand the strategic importance of it, not just on that issue, but intuitively get the value or role of it in a much broader context. Which is what every lawyer does, Peter, you weird freak. You're not constrained to an issue. Your mind rapidly makes valid and important connections and associations in a way most people don't, and in a way most people can't. Then he says, well, why not regarding me? Like, why don't I take this case and run forward with it? He says, and who gives a F? Okay, one more assistant director like blank, blank, or whoever on investigation leading to impeachment? He's like, this is huge. And with D gone and with Andy McCabe leaving, all these blanks, who says I get another promotion from the DAD? She responds, listen, Peter, we should stop having this conversation here, okay? Just tell Bill you need another day and we can discuss tomorrow. And certainly, that would certainly impact my thinking too. We can't work closely on another case again because we'll fall in love and bang each other again. Though obviously I want you to do what is right for you. He says, A, okay. Though now I'm curious, and B, sigh. I can't fight my love for you. Yeah, I suppose that's right. But God, we're a good team, says Peter. Is that playing into your decision and your advice to me because we can't work together? Then a little bit of time goes by, about 10 minutes. Then he responds and he says, oh, Chaffetz is stepping down on June 30th. She says, no, not at all. Our love is not impeding my analysis. I just think we are both ready for a change, truly. A, she responds back to A, is just about the different realistic outcomes of this case. Like, that's why you shouldn't do it, because this case is crap. And B, talking about Psy, we're a good team. Lisa responds and says, that's definitely true. I want/need you to give me your old resume. I think I'll wait and see what happens with Special Agent in Charge at the Washington field office. I'm not expecting to get it. I just want to see what I feel like after the decision. And A, you and I both know the odds are nothing. If I thought it was likely, I'd be there, no question. I hesitate in part because my gut sense, this is again from Peter, and concern that there's no big there, okay? So he responds back to A. There's different outcomes. Definitely true. Give me your old resume. I'll see. Peter says, I'll see if I can advance up. I don't think I will, but give me your resume and I'll help you get another job. And I think the odds are nothing, but I hesitate because I think in my gut, there's no big there on the case. She says, okay, Pete, she's the lawyer. Let's talk about this tomorrow. Okay, I don't want to talk about this anymore. In text message, we're on writing. He says, regardless of the outcome, I think there's a certain savvy business decision for you to do it. $600,000 a year and doing white hat corporate investigations isn't a bad exit strategy. She says, is that going tomorrow? And he says, fine. I didn't think I said anything wrong, but fine. Now he gets mad. She's not returning his love. Let's talk about this tomorrow. She cuts him off. Stop saying that in text messages, okay? It's all going to come out. We're going to read them on a live stream on YouTube. I didn't think I said anything wrong, but fine. And yep, is Andy going to the board? Peter says, I suppose he can't. He has to sign as D. So I don't know if that means that he can't chair the board. All right. So the big takeaway of this little disgusting love fest between the two says essentially, long story short, he doesn't think that there's a there and no big there at all. But they're going to continue to launch this thing. It is now May 19, 2017. The investigation needs to happen because they need to take out the president. So all that gets dropped and the White House confirms that. Then Strzok's text sentiments over to Lisa were again confirmed by another key colleague working the case, somebody called Special Agent William Barnett. We're going to read his interview transcript report and summary, who would later tell the DOJ that by early 2017, the FBI had mostly ruled out that the Trump campaign and various other players like Mike Flynn or other advisors like Carter Page or George Papadopoulos had concluded with the Kremlin at all. And he's into it in detail. And here's what Barnett had to say in his report. Now, in the interview of William J. Barnett, they bring him into the office. A bunch of other people are there, all listed out there. Interview began at 10:06 a.m., voluntary, and he understood he's not the subject of an investigation. Now, the interview began, and they say he started working for the FBI back in 1999, goes through a bunch of stuff, worked on China, and then ultimately was contacted via somebody to start looking into the WikiLeaks and Edward Snowden and Paul Manafort and more. Now, the Razor and Manafort investigations were a part of Crossfire Hurricane. He was briefed on this because they said that the Trump campaign had compromising info on Hillary and that Trump had been penetrated by the Russians. Now, Barnett thought the Crossfire Hurricane was opaque, with little detail about the specific evidence of criminal events. FBI agent says there's nothing even in Crossfire Hurricane, which they're going to open up another one called Oxford, comma. Initially, he believed his lack of understanding was because he was brand new. He just got on the case and didn't really know what was inside. Other analysts were intelligence analysts who worked closely with him. One person assigned to Manafort. Barnett had difficulty becoming familiar with this investigation because he couldn't access actual components of the files. They locked him out and just said, oh, trust me, it's all good in there. Barnett had asked for files about all of this and found that everything was unclear and disorganized. And again, this guy's been around for a while. August 1999, he's very experienced. He knows what he's doing. Now then, from September 2016 through November 2016, Barnett advised very little was being done on Razor, and the case was opened in the field, and the FBI headquarters had concurrence and oversight over the whole thing. He thought that the predication for this investigation was, quote, not great. One fact for opening this up was a speech that Flynn gave in Russia years before. He thought that maybe the speech was ill-advised, but it's not illegal, and he didn't open the Razor investigation. He wasn't even clear on why they were opening this or what it was for. They were going to go out and get toll records, but the request was pulled back at the last minute. Peter Strzok was the person who ordered the pullback. Barnett was not told why. Now, the investigation contained information that came from someone else about Carter Page. Carter Page and that investigation was also part of Crossfire Hurricane. And then what they saw is that in 2014, Flynn unexpectedly left an event. Barnett believed that there was information that could be significant, but the analyst did not locate any information to corroborate the reporting. And so Flynn, including other inquiries, there was no evidence. Now, he found the idea that Flynn leaving an event without the matter being noted, not being plausible. And so he thought the information just wasn't accurate. So he was treading very lightly in this investigation. There's an election coming up. Barnett chose not to get records from FISA. And due to the type of investigation, he did not have access to the grand jury process. He was told to keep low key, just look at public info and more. Now, then after being involved for 6 weeks, Barnett was still unsure of the basis of the investigation about Russia and Trump working together. There was no specific criminal allegation. They were just searching for something. And the guy in the case has no idea what it is all about. There was a news report that there was a change in Ukraine policy. Okay, the RNC had recommended that we go in there and we change lethal assistance to appropriate assistance. And that was a sign of collusion? He said, what? He failed to see the significance of the changed wording and thought that the theory was groping. You're groping for something. So Barnett said accusations by Christopher Steele, the Hillary Clinton campaign propagandist hired by the Mark Elias lawyers, constituted a direct accusation. So they start looking into it. Now, the Razor investigation continued to remain in a holding pattern through late 16, with no one making a specific request to him to close the investigation, no one pushing for any more investigations to happen. No one told Barnett that he was not doing enough. And so in September, the Manafort investigation, all of that started to get addressed. In November 2016, so election is now over, Trump wins. Barnett said that there was another message about closing that investigation. And Barnett had a very frank discussion about Razor. He believed the investigation was an exercise in futility. He didn't even understand the point of the investigation at all. Now, neither Barnett nor this other person had the authority to close it. Strzok, Peter Strzok, the FBI lover, who's glazing Lisa in text messages, he was the guy who actually had the authority to do that. Now, he believed this other person was lead analyst and someone else was convinced there was a criminal violation about Flynn. And so it was referred. Barnett and others were a believer due to his conviction that Flynn was involved in illegal activity. So then the Razor investigation became increasingly complex. Okay, Trump just won the election. Now Flynn's working in the new administration. Barnett began to ask others what they thought the end game was. He said, well, how about an interview of Flynn? We can go talk to him and the case can be closed unless there's other bad information that comes out of the interview. This person cautioned against that, and they said that it would look suspicious and we would, actually go and now reveal that we're investigating Flynn. He saw the rationale. He said, well, this should be an easy layup. We just go talk to him. Barnett also believed there was little harm in alerting Flynn since he's, going into the administration. So he talked to another FBI special agent in charge in Washington. Barnett told that person that Barnett, wanted to interview Flynn because there's nothing else to do. After he told him, then he gets a response, and that they ran the request up the chain to go interview Flynn. Request denied. He goes, okay. He explained that his idea of the interview was part of a clearance. He's going to go work for the White House, and we need to validate what's going on, but we couldn't do that because everything was being pulled back. So then Trump is about to take office. Between Christmas and New Year's Eve, another agent called Barnett and said Peter Strzok told him close Razor. He began working on a document to close Razor, and he wanted to include information, including non-derogatory information, to say that there's no there there. He wanted to include information blank, blank, redacted, 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 and that they were visiting different cities. All of that was denied. The closing document states that this can be reopened if derogatory information is obtained in the future. So then someone else called Jensen asked about, quote, a tripwire that was mentioned in a message sent on December 5th, 16. Barnett explained a tripwire was a potential source of future info, talking about the meaning of the message. Then in January, there was a link message from someone else. I know COB, it needs to be finished. He couldn't recall a timeline. More text messages about closing this thing. And again, Barnett, after all of that, did not change his view that Flynn was not compromised by the Russians after reading blank. He was told there could be a Logan Act violation, not familiar with that, had to go research it. There was other conversations that happened and someone had a medical procedure. So then Barnett was not a part of further conversations about Flynn. Trump now takes office. It's now January 25th, 17. One agent told Barnett that Flynn had been interviewed on the 24th. He was apologetic. Why? Barnett was not consulted, was not asked to be a part of it. He assumed that the interview was being done as just a check-the-box exercise before they closed the investigation. He was not told they were planning to interview Flynn, and typically that's what happens. They said, oh, it was just a last-minute decision. Sorry, we just decided to run over there, and we didn't mean to cut you out. In hindsight, he said, I was literally cut out of this. So there was another reorganization then of Crossfire Hurricane after the interview of Flynn. So Flynn says something, boom, Strzok picks up on it. Strzok was supervising the Razor investigation along with others. Then the DOJ and FBI were having meetings about Razor, and neither Barnett or others were invited to attend. This was a top-down investigation, meaning it came from senior officials. The FBI was reacting to articles being reported in the news, most notably written by Ignatius, concerning blank involving Flynn to be the Russian ambassador. And Barnett said that this all unfolded in 3 phases, give or take. Now, in early February 17, Barnett then discussed his wish to be removed from Razor. Why? He said the IG was looking into the Clinton case, and Barnett believed that this was problematic, okay? This investigation is being conducted improperly. The IG is looking into what happened here, and I want to get out of the blast zone. Now, FBI doesn't allow that to happen. You can request to get off a case, but it's not automatic. So they say Barnett was not at the meeting. He's like, I got cut out. I'm not even a part of it anymore. And says that there was a meeting where the FBI told the DOJ that they did not believe that Flynn was a Russian agent. So then in February, NSLs were being drafted that instructed Barnett on what needed to be done. Barnett believed that Andy McCabe was directing Razor, which is now he was deputy at the time because Comey had not been fired yet. Barnett still did not see any evidence of collusion between Trump and Russia. Barnett was willing to follow instructions, says the deputy director gave him to us, but he thought the whole thing was just checking the boxes, making sure all the bases were covered before this whole thing was closed. He didn't think it was leading towards a prosecution. More redactions here, but none of the information that are in those redactions appeared to indicate criminal activity at all to him. more messages about the Logan Act and other information being passed about. But all the info that he got was what was expected to be found. And again, in Barnett's opinion, no evidence of criminal activity, no basis for a new investigation at all. Now, Barnett was asked about a series of other messages between himself and someone else. He said the link messages were about providing info to the White House, and he gave a sample request referred to as a pony by Kevin Kleinsmith. Kevin Kleinsmith, of course, was the guy who manipulated the FISA warrant into Carter Page and got prosecuted for that and, of course, kept his law license. So Barnett completed the request and forwarded the request to Kleinsmith. He then physically walked those over and got initials on those. Barnett was also asked specific questions about the predication for the investigation. He said he sent an email to Kleinsmith, and Kleinsmith told Barnett this information is acceptable. While Barnett questioned the investigative theory, like there's nothing here, he did not think at the time that the investigation was illegal because other lawyers, in this case Kleinsmith, was actually overseeing it and it was coming down from top officials. So Barnett then thought that the gathering of information should have been done in phase 1 in 16. We're now in 17. He still, this entire time, thinks we're just checking the boxes to close this thing out so we can finally put the matter to rest. So then Barnett was asked about a request for more information. He got information through the NSLs, and again, like the 4th time, it did not change his mind that Flynn was not working with the Russian government. He believed there were grounds to investigate 3 other people for crossfire, but he thought that Flynn was the outlier. So then Barnett was asked about an email from Kleinsmith to Barnett. Barnett explained the potential overproduction issue, and on March 20th, then, FBI Comey enters the game. Comey testified and discussed the investigation of 4 other people in the campaign. And during the testimony, Strzok emailed Barnett and asked if the FBI had Flynn's redacted. Barnett said that he was very skeptical of the Flynn collusion investigation. He thought it was a dumb theory that did not make any sense. And then they had a discussion about Robert Mueller, who just got appointed. He told Strzok that the Blank case was far stronger than Razor, and Barnett was working closely with others on other matters. Barnett also was told to give Flynn to a group including the SCO, Special Counsel's Office, and ultimately, they wanted to drill down the fees that Flynn was paid for going over to speak in Russia. Barnett expressed his concerns about Rhee to another attorney. He said blank that he wanted nothing to do with this. He smells something is awry. Now, on the day following that brief with Barnett was contacted once again by the FBI lover, Peter Strzok. Strzok said that Strzok really wanted Barnett to work with the SCO, the Special Counsel's Office. But I know you've got a problem with Rhee, who's trying to weaponize this investigation. He said that he wanted to work blank and did not wish to pursue the collusion investigation as it was not there. Strzok said that he would run interference between Barnett and Rhee, and then someone else told Strzok that Barnett, that he would work on other things than what Rhee is working on, and we'll keep you guys separated. So then in March or April, Crossfire Hurricane went to another reorganization. All of the investigations were put together from the Washington field office and more. There was a separate and new matter that was opened up. And then in March, Flynn did an article in the Washington Street Journal. Then we see in May, Comey fired. And that seemed to trigger a significant amount of activity about Crossfire Hurricane. Carter Page then gets dragged in. He's interviewed 3 times, and both investigations seem to be nearing an end with nothing left to pursue. Yeah. Manafort case was moved from an investigation squad to counterintelligence. Crossfire Hurricane seemed to be winding down. Nuh-uh. Then the appointment of Robert Mueller changed everything. So once again, the special counsel is supposed to come in, do their own investigation, actually create their own evidence, but that didn't happen. Search warrants were being drafted. Attorneys in the special counsel's office were very aggressive and they were directing everything. Barnett described that this SCO, the special counsel, their situation as an upside down, with attorneys drafting search warrants and getting agents to just simply act as affiants. So the agent doesn't have evidence and then it goes to an attorney and says, oh, I need a warrant to go validate this line of inquiry. It's the opposite. The attorneys just say, this is what we're doing. Barnett thought that there was, quote, a get Trump attitude by some in the special counsel's office. And he said the get Trump attitude was exhibited in two ways. He referred to incidents involving Trump that were taken in the most negative manner or in some cases misinterpreted. As an example, Barnett described comments made by Trump in that investigators, quote, needed to get to the bottom of that. Blank, one of the SEO attorneys said that Trump wanted to, quote, cover it up. He said, what? No, he didn't say that. He said, literally, get to the bottom of it. That's not saying cover it up. Trump says, go investigate it. They say, actually, what you said was bury it. So as another example, Barnett said the firing of Comey was interpreted as obstruction, and it could have easily been done just because Trump didn't like Comey and wanted him replaced. He said redacted, redacted, and redacted, and is his right. He runs the executive branch. So Barnett said that the statements were simply discounted because they did not fit into the opinions of the special counsel. And about Flynn, some individuals in the office assumed Flynn was lying to cover up collusion, but he believed that Flynn lied to save his job. And it was the most plausible explanation because there was no evidence to contradict it. Now, the second way to get Trump, and the attitude was exhibited by the SEO, was the All-Stars, Mueller's All-Stars, which are really just a bunch of corrupt hacks. It was a term used in news articles describing them. All of the attorneys wanted to be a part of something big, a successful prosecution. It was not necessarily to get Trump, but more the conviction that there was something criminal there. And there was a competition as to which attorney was going to find it. There was a lack of letting evidence lead the investigation and more of an attitude of, quote, the evidence is there, we just have to find it. As one example, Barnett said that one of the lawyers during the interviews would be convinced the interviewee had information despite what they were saying, and that the attorneys suggested the idea that the interviewee did not actually have the information that they wanted. Here's an example. During one of the early interviews, one person called KT McFarland said she was not aware of blank between Flynn and Russia. Now, at the later interview, McFarland said she was aware of blank. Andrew Weissman, you know who that guy is. Now he's elevated to the media. An attorney there suggested that was a blatant lie. He said, we're going to charge you with lying to us. Many, including Barnett and others, believed that McFarland was just trying to minimize her knowledge of what occurred. It was embarrassing and inconvenient, and she was being proposed for a possible position as an ambassador to Singapore. Barnett believed that some of the attorneys, though, did not ask clarifying questions. They wanted to interpret what she did say in a way that helps their case the most. Now, many in Mueller's office had the opinion that McFarland had knowledge that Trump was directing blank between Flynn and Russia. When McFarland did not give that information, it was assumed that she was lying. When Barnett suggested it was possible that she was actually honest, one of the lawyers participating in the interview said, you're the only person who believes that she's not holding back the information. Mueller described McFarland as the key to everything because McFarland was the link between Trump, who was at Mar-a-Lago with her, and Flynn, who was in the Dominican Republic when the statements were made, or something. Now, McFarland was interviewed on numerous occasions. Barnett, the FBI agent, was told at one point he was being taken off McFarland because the attorneys thought it would be easier if he's not there to get her to talk. He said, I will be in the interview. This is my case. When Barnett was told that he would not be allowed in, he suggested that he might take the matter to the inspectors general. Good for him. Barnett believed that some at the SEO were trying to get McFarland to change her story to make it fit the Trump collusion theory. He says, I'm not going to let that happen. This blank after contacted Barnett and said Barnett would be a part of the interview, try to kick him out. Now, during the interview with McFarland and the obstruction team was leading the interview, Barnett described the team's questions as general. They did not ask follow-up questions. He was perplexed by their lack of this. He began asking McFarland follow-up questions. He was trying to cut to the chase, like, what are the facts? He asked questions like, do you know that as a fact or are you speculating? Did you pass information from Trump to Flynn? The lawyer for Mueller, called Andrew Goldstein, called a timeout and said, hey, if you keep asking these questions to actually conduct an interview, we're going to be here all day. So stop that because we just want to make it up. During one interview of Flynn, possibly the second interview, one of the interviewers asked a series of questions, including one, which Flynn's answer seemed to indicate that Trump was aware of something between Flynn and a Russian ambassador. Barnett believed that Flynn's answer was an effort to tell the interviewers what they wanted to hear. He asked clarifying questions about this, who then, Flynn said, Trump clearly was not aware of that at all. Barnett said numerous attempts were made to obtain evidence that Trump directed Flynn, but no evidence was obtained. He said it was just an assumption, an astro projection, and the ground just kept being retreaded. He said it seems there was always someone there who claimed to have a lead on information that would prove collusion, always a dead end. He provided an example. Weissman said that there was a meeting on a yacht near Greece that was going to be the proof of collusion, quid pro quo. He said within a day or two that information was not substantiated. And Andrew Weissman, okay, the usual pattern that we see, you get into a position like this, you go and attack your political opponents. Doesn't matter, you're not going to get charged, you're going to keep your law license, no ethical problems at all, and they'll give you a role on MSNBC and you can show up on Jen Psaki's show as much as you want. Barnett was asked about the investigation redacted. He believed in August 17, the investigation was focused on blank. Then there was a pivot to Russia, and Barnett assumed it was to close the investigation again. And again, a lot more redacted there as we come to the close. He said that working with the special counsel was a very unique environment for him. Typically, investigators push for legal process and have to explain the need for the request to lawyers, but that's not what was happening here. Everything was green lighted. You could get whatever legal process you wanted. And he did not see the investigator-attorney relationship as 50-50 at all. In fact, he believed the investigators, us actually doing this, we were looked at as a speed bump. The lawyers were leading the whole thing. And investigators assigned to this were literally just doing what they were assigned to do. So he was not a part of any discussions as to whether Flynn should be re-interviewed. He had a cellular telephone issued by the special counsel's office, which he did not wipe. Andrew Weissman and all the other guys, they all wiped their phones. He did hear that other agents comically talk about wiping their phones. Entered the password like 100 times and the thing wiped itself, but was not aware of anyone wiping their phones. Barnett said that one agent had telephoned previously, had a phone issued to Strzok. Now, Barnett thought the Trump campaign may have been aware the Russians were attempting to impact the election, but that was far different from Trump actually having a deal or working quid pro quo. Barnett and others joked about how the investigation into collusion could be made into a game, which they referred to as collusion clue. In the hypothetical game, investigators are able to choose any character conducting any activity in any location and pair this individual with another character and just say, oh, there's collusion. With respect to Flynn and the Russian ambassador, Barnett did not believe that Flynn was being directed by Trump. Barnett did not believe that Flynn had additional information to give to the SCO. Barnett believed the prosecution of Flynn by Mueller was used as a means to, quote, get Trump. All now declassified, and they lied through their teeth to us for years. These people are just the worst. The whole thing was an operation, and the lawyers came in to try to effectuate a goal. Now it's been released. These people belong in jail. Now, by the time the FBI tried to portray Trump as under Putin's grip, they also learned about the original allegations of collusion from Hillary Clinton. Steele dossier, written by Christopher Steele, he was paid by Hillary Clinton and her law firm, where Mark Elias used to work over there at Perkins Coie. And that the Steele dossier was completely uncorroborated or debunked and were a part of a political dirty trick. Now, the first warning signs of this were in the late summer of 2016 when CIA Director John Brennan went in and personally briefed Barack Obama about this. Barack should be in jail too. The FBI saying that U.S. intelligence had intercepted Hillary Clinton's plan in July of 16 to manufacture a scandal alleging that Trump was conspiring with the Russians to hijack the election. Hillary had her email problem. They needed to engineer a problem for Trump. Now, what we saw is that we're getting additional insight into Russian activities from Redacted. Brennan wrote in his notes, the CITE alleged approved by Hillary Clinton a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors, probably Jake Sullivan, to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming the Russians interfered in the election. And here is the classified annex. So this is where they shoved the Steele dossier. And nobody could see this, of course. And ultimately, this was Hillary Clinton campaign propaganda that was used as the Russia collusion hoax, all released by Chuck Grassley at one point. But these were the notes from John Brennan. And you can see large portions of this are redacted, declassified by John Ratcliffe, October 2020. And these are the CIA director's notes. He says, we're getting additional insight into Russian actions from redacted. CITE alleged approved by Hillary Clinton. Oh, a proposal from one of her foreign policy advisors to vilify Donald Trump by stirring up a scandal claiming interference by the Russian security service. John Brennan belongs in prison. And any evidence of collaboration between Trump and the Russians, all the rest of this now redacted. Those are Brennan's notes. They knew it was Hillary Clinton campaign propaganda, and they ran with it anyways. So the intelligence made clear that the plan was to smear Trump, and it was shared directly with the FBI at a briefing with James Comey. According to a classified annex to a DOJ report made public, that briefing occurred just 4 days after the Crossfire Hurricane probe was ultimately launched. On August 3rd, 2016, Brennan then briefed Obama. Biden, brain dead Biden, was in there. Clapper was there, and Comey were there. All were told that they got intelligence about Hillary trying to set Trump up. They all knew. Then by early 2017, before the Oxford comma probe was launched, the FBI had evaluated every statement in the Steele dossier. They knew it was propaganda, it was made up, concluding that some were provably false and most others were either internet rumors or unable to be corroborated, according to a spreadsheet. And they posted the whole thing over here, showing us exactly their analysis. Okay, so Hillary Clinton's campaign propaganda comes out, corroboration, none of it's real. And you can read the full thing. It's 94 pages. It was a deep analysis. They had it in their hands and they knew better, but they didn't care. Some of the subsources and sources in the dossier distanced themselves from Christopher Steele. In fact, the FBI knew that Steele's primary subsource, Igor Danchenko, was suspected of being a Russian asset. Weird. And so in an interview with the FBI in February 17, Danchenko claimed that some of the information attributed to him was hearsay, didn't even say it. By early 17, the FBI also cleared another of the targets of the Russia collusion probe, Mike Flynn, again saying no derogatory information was found on him. And the whole goal was to get Trump to admit, get him to lie, and to prosecute him. We saw the interview with Agent Barnett, read through that. They called the whole thing collusion clue and said all we were doing is trying to find evidence to smear the sitting president. So the whole thing is now available. You can connect the dots. There's a lot more information that we just flew through here. But the fact is, all of these people belong in jail. And what we're now learning is that a lot of this is coming because the memos are being released as federal prosecutors now in Florida are working on putting them in jail, investigating this conspiracy. This is the grand conspiracy case, and the evidence as clear as day. So hopefully that advances. And as we know with a conspiracy case, we don't have a statute of limitations problem. If they're continuing to act to cover up the conspiracy, which they are, then you can relate all of the overt acts into the main underlying conspiracy and take us all the way back to 2015 and 2016. And so we've got some very, very problematic people who were behind all of this. And many of their allies, I would presume, are still inside these agencies, still conducting these types of operations. But we're very happy to see the White House now releasing this. Of course, the media won't pay a dime's worth of attention to it. And we hope that there is justice that comes on this because these people cannot get away with what they've done. This is a backstab of the sitting president. They were engineering evidence. They knew it was all fraudulent, but they ran with it anyways because they are partisan actors who try to steal the presidency away from the duly elected president. And so we're going to keep our eye on this story, of course, and more. Thank you for sharing this with somebody so that they can see exactly how bad it actually was. Every time they say Trump is weaponizing the DOJ or Trump is unleashing retribution anywhere, please point them to this video so they can see exactly what was done against the president. It's all in writing. The documents reveal it. The FBI, even their top agents, were saying there is no there. Even the lead investigators like Strzok, as he's singing love songs to his FBI lover, is confirming it's in my gut. There is no there. But they did it anyways because that's who we're dealing with. So we're going to keep our eye on this. Shout out to John Solomon for continuing to dig into it. Shout out to the grand conspiracy prosecutors down there in Florida. Hopefully we get indictments coming soon. And thank you for joining us as we keep our eye on this weaponization, on this lawfare unleashed by the leftists in our government, because this is how they steal our republic away from us. It's by engineering operations like this. And our best defense is to know it, to expose it, to shine sunlight down on it so people can see the truth of how this all works. We'll keep our eye on this one. Thanks for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, now, let's talk about some election shenanigans because we got some good stuff here as well. And here's what's going on this one. Minnesota now being sued by a city inside Minnesota. The city saying that the Secretary of State out there in Little Somalia is trying to rig the election rules and to prohibit the state from actually conducting an election filled with integrity. We're talking about paper voter rosters. The state wants to use them. The secretary doesn't. He wants everything to go into the electronic machine so they can do whatever they want with them. And so now there is a lawsuit that is making its way up to the Supreme Court of the state of Minnesota, the highest in the land. And here is what is happening. You can see this organization called the UMLC, which is the Upper Midwest Law Center, now has this case fully briefed. They submitted their petition some time ago. There's been a back and forth. The Democracy Docket Dorks, they've submitted a response. They've got the League of Women Voters who are coming to try to fight this. They do not want paper anything, especially in elections. And the goal is to defeat this lawsuit so they can maintain operational control of the primaries and the general. So it's now ready to go to the Supreme Court. We're waiting for a ruling from them, but they filed this back in May saying we're challenging the attempts by the Minnesota state county officials to block the city from using paper. We're asking the court to say, under Minnesota law, we've actually got the authority to administer our own elections. We notified them that we were going to use paper, and they came crashing in here, rejecting our position. And now we're going to the Supreme Court of Minnesota. Here is the lawsuit. You can see City of Oak Grove suing the Minnesota Secretary of State, Steve Simon, and others in the county elections department and more. They say, all right, Supreme Court, listen, we've got laws here, and now we are petitioning you to say that we are allowed to use paper rosters in the upcoming general election. The county and the state have to accept this. We decided to do it, and then they said we're prohibited and that we cannot disobey them. They even threatened to prosecute city officials for daring to use paper rosters in the elections, explaining, listen, under Minnesota law, each polling place is administered by the city where it's located. This has been the way it's been governed for years. But this dispute arose because respondents are trying to distort the law. They're trying to wrench away local administration on a politically controversial topic. Question: can a precinct's voter rosters, whether they are maintained in paper or electronic format, who decides? Now, Minnesota law says that each town, city, or county may decide for themselves what form of rosters it will use for any election. But Minnesota came back down and they turned this provision upside down. They now say that for most elections, Only the county may make this decision, even though county employees don't use voter rosters at all. So this has now impaired our city's ability to handle our elections. Oak Grove has given the legally required notice. We've told them that we're going to use paper rosters in all of its precincts for 2026, but respondents have refused to cooperate, and they seem intent on trying to override our wishes and to dictate how our own elections and our judges perform their duties at polling places. And so they have gone so far as to threaten us with criminal prosecution if we don't follow their rules. Now, we therefore bring this up to the Minnesota Supreme Court and need you to help on this. You have jurisdiction about this. You have to correct errors. Specifically, the Secretary Simon has refused to accept our notification of intent that we're using paper. Respondent Simon has failed and will continue to fail to notify the county of that intent. And Hunt, the respondent, has purported to order Oak Grove not to use paper, even though they're allowed to do that. We've got similar orders to election judges commanding them to disobey the city officials who they work for and threatening them with prosecution if they don't do it. So the judges who will come in are also being threatened. City officials, judges, the state is commandeering the entire process, threatening people with jail. So Steve Simon, the Minnesota secretary, is now being sued. He's responsible for overseeing election administration and following the rules. We're suing Tom Hunt, Pam LeBlanc, and others. And here's the background. So this case is about the format of polling place rosters under Minnesota law. Each precinct in Minnesota has a roster that lists the names and addresses of all persons registered to vote in that precinct. So you can see why they don't want this to be printed out on paper or paper to be used during an election, because they don't want anybody looking at any of these lists. During an election, a copy of each voter roster must be present at the polling place in that precinct. When a voter appears at the polling place to cast her ballot, the election judges refer to the roster to determine whether she is registered here or whether she's already voted. It's a list. You go in, oh, hi, Robert Gouveia here, I have cast my vote. Oh, well, flip it over. Oh, here you are. Okay, great. Oh, haven't voted before. Yep, you're registered here. Perfect. Here's a ballot. They don't want that to happen. In between elections, the information contained in the roster is maintained by the Secretary of State in a statewide voter registration database that is accessible to county auditors, municipal clerks, and district clerks. Before each election, the Secretary sends to each county auditor the current voter rosters for those precincts. Then the auditors distribute them. For precincts that are within the boundaries of a city or town, they distribute the rosters with other materials, and those go to judges and more. Now, if they're not within any city or town, they go to election judges and it's, handing out the materials. Now, under the law, a voter roster must be printed paper document unless the jurisdiction opts to use an electronic roster. The law says a polling place roster is in one literally printed format or electronic format as permitted by other laws. Now, if the head election official designates electronic rosters, then they can use that. And if they don't want to use those, they have to notify the secretary 90 days before the first election. And the notification is valid for all subsequent elections until revoked and unless revoked. Now, even when a precinct uses an electronic roster, it must have a paper backup approved by the secretary at the location in case the machines go down. And the secretary explains and prescribes how this gets implemented. Now, this case is also about the division of authority over the administration by county and city officials. Under Minnesota law, in precincts within the boundaries of cities or towns, elections are largely administered by city people, with county and state people playing a supporting role. And in Minnesota, a precinct means a geographical area with boundaries. Within the boundaries, the city has the authority to establish the precincts. All these rules here. They also can designate where the polling places are, appoint and assign election judges, and run their elections. The cities also have responsibility for providing and selecting equipment and supplies. They are free to make arrangements for county and state office officials to also make supplies available, but cities and towns are equally free to do it on their own. And so, in other words, Minnesota polling places within city limits are operated by the cities and the people who work for the city who are there. County governments exercise control over unorganized territory. And under Minnesota law, a county, municipality, or school district can be permitted to use electronic rosters for any election. It applies this division of authority to voter roster formats. Now, this is unquestionably how electronic rosters got their start. The legislature first authorized such electronic rosters in 2013, and it specifically permitted cities to opt for electronic rosters in certain precincts. But this dispute arose when we decided we didn't want that, okay? We exercised our legal statutory right to revoke the use of the electronic rosters for precincts within City of Oak Grove and go back to the default of paper rosters. They rejected our efforts. They threatened us with jail. In the year 2018, the City of Oak Grove entered a contract with Anoka County to use electronic rosters. And then pursuant to the agreement, in 18, Anoka or one of its officials notified the secretary that they're going to use electronic rolls. But more recently, Oak Grove officials have said, we actually want paper back and we're going to use it. So in 23, the city council in Oak Grove unanimously passed a resolution at number 24101 saying, quote, we are hereby terminating our agreement with Anoka County for using electronic systems. We're giving written notice now, and we're turning back to paper poll books. So in response, they flipped. October 8th, 2024, Hunt acknowledged the termination, but he said the head elections official for Anoka has designated that all precincts in the county, so it's a big county, the city is within the county, city delegated up to the county level, which encompasses the city. Now they're saying we're taking it back. So he said, you can't. The entire county is using it, so you have to too. And insisted that Oak Grove remain bound by this designation, even in the absence of any election rosters contract with the county. Also in 24, the Anoka County Elections Department, which is under the direction of LeBlanc, sent a memo to head election judges. He said, hey, listen, judges, all precincts must use electronic poll books in 24. And if you don't use the electronic poll books, you're guilty of a felony. Woo! You know you're over the mark when they're now threatening felonies. We saw the same thing in Arizona with Adrian Fontes and Chris Mays. Don't give the FBI the list, okay, because we'll put you in prison. In early 25, Oak Grove City Council passed an additional resolution seeking to implement its decision about paper voter rosters. It was passed unanimously. It directed and authorized city staff to engage with the county and the Secretary of State and other entities to discontinue the electronic poll rosters and to take all other actions to get out of that and return to paper. Now, the engagement bore little fruit. Later in 25, the County Board of Commissioners passed a resolution that, quote, supports and reaffirms the continued use of the electronic rosters. They hate paper. It's like kryptonite to them. On April 1st of this year, Oak Grove then gave notice. Okay, the county can do whatever they want, but we're a city. We're going to do what the law says we can do. We are revoking any previous notification of the electronic machines and that we're going to use paper rosters, so print them out and send them over. On May 1, then the Secretary of State in Minnesota sent a reply saying, you're rejected. The office stated that for all county, state, and federal elections, only the Anoka County auditor can determine the form of the roster. They say clearly that's not true. They believe that the Minnesota law gives county officials the right to dictate the format of rosters, even in precincts where other aspects of the election are administered entirely by the city. This makes no practical sense. The format of the roster for a given precinct should be determined by the same officials who are responsible for administering the election. Outside city limits, that's for them. Within city limits, that's for us, and we want the paper. Now, indeed, they agree that any city, including Oak Grove, has the right to opt out of the electronic machines that do not coincide with state or county elections. For those elections, they say that, think about like a school board meeting in the city or something. Respondents acknowledge that the Secretary of State must transmit voter information to the auditor with instructions about the format to be used, and that the auditor must distribute those materials to the city clerk in the appropriate format. So if you want it for city elections, you can have paper, but if it's a county or bigger election, you got to follow what we do. But Oak County and Grove administers county and state elections at precincts within the boundaries the same way. So there's no reason why the format should be based upon what election is on the ballot. Now, their position also makes little legal sense. Section 201-225 expressly says that a county or school district may use rosters or may choose not to use them for any election. It doesn't say only city elections, it says any election. So for precincts within the boundaries of a city or town, the only ones who use voter rosters are city officials and city employees. They're the ones who staff the polling places. They look up the names and addresses of the voters, who use them to determine whether a voter may or may not vote at that site. County officials or employees do these things only in precincts outside city limits. So the natural meaning of this language means we run our own elections. Now, by contrast, their interpretation would negate the reference to any election. It would mean only we could use it for city elections, but not for other elections, and it just doesn't say that. Now, although the city has given respondent Simon the required notice saying we're not using these, he's rejected that notice, and so we need you, Supreme Court, to correct this. Otherwise, they're going to make us use this illegal methodology. We want paper rosters, and as described before, they have purported to command that we use the machines, notwithstanding our determination to the contrary. And if you don't correct this, this is going to impact 2026. And so in particular, election judges in Oak Grove are appointed, hired, paid, and supervised by the city. But if you don't correct this, they're going to be forced to disregard the lawful decisions of the city, and they're even being threatened with prison if they disobey the orders. So we need you, Supreme Court, to come in here and immediately make a ruling on this, find that they have engaged in wrongful acts and errors, and grant our relief so that we may actually govern ourselves accordingly. And the Democracy Docket crew is melting down over this right now. They've submitted their brief, and now it's off to the Minnesota Supreme Court to decide. And these are always interesting because you see they get so mad when there's paper. If you can print a list out and see everybody on the list rather than just typing a name into a search box, it's much harder to cheat because that person comes in, you open their name up, you put a little signature by it. Oh, here they are. Check it. They voted. Good. They can't vote again. But if it's inside of a machine, you just can't see it or validate it. You got to take their word for it. And we know we don't want to do that. So how do we fix all of this? Of course, the SAVE Act. And a couple of updates here because apparently there's some momentum in this front.
Republicans, Democrats, Independents all want it all across the country. You know, the only people that don't want it,
Democrats,
are elected Democrats.
Yeah.
So we
got
have
a couple
the votes.
Republicans too.
We have 50 votes. Yeah, we can win this. But what we have to do is we have to vote. And by the way, if we can't get everything, let's just do voter ID. Let's just do, you have to be an American citizen to register to vote. So we have got to get election security done. So my goal is we're going to stay here until we get something done to make sure our elections in November are secure. Whether it's through reconciliation, which only takes Republican votes, or do a talking filibuster, we've got to get election security done.
Yeah. Your take,
Republicans, Democrats, Independents all want it.
Based Mike Lee is saying that things are moving in a favorable direction on the SAVE Act. Okay. Senate GOP discussions are becoming less about whether to stay and strengthen election security a la the Save America Act and more about how exactly to go about it. Okay. I like the sound of it, but I also like the sound of it when they told us this the last 5 times too. But anyways, we'll take it. Here's Base Mike Lee explaining from the steps of Congress.
I just came from a very productive meeting with Senate Republicans, and the conversation has shifted in a very favorable direction. We're talking now much more about how best to do this, not whether to stay and work on the Save America Act, but what procedural vehicle to use in order to get this thing done. So, look, I always, this is a step-by-step process. I don't want to proclaim victory, but the conversation has moved in a favorable direction. I want to thank Senate Majority Leader John Thune and our whip, John Barrasso, for leading a very productive discussion today.
All right. Well, that's good. So we just need to put it up for a vote. Okay. The 60 vote threshold is to end debate. Just put it on the floor. We can have a debate about it and have the debate for 2 months. All right. I'll go drop off pizzas. Happy to do it. But it's necessary. And even if it can't get passed in time for this election, we got to get it done for 2028. We need to get election integrity through so that the Democrats and I would presume other interested actors who are maybe not Democrats, maybe outside of America, can no longer cheat and bring in fake IDs, hack the voter rolls, and more. And so thank you, Mike Lee, for continuing to focus on this. Of course, we're going to cover more election litigation and the lawfare that's unfolding right now in the middle of these midterms. Thank you for joining and subscribing as we do. All right, we got one more update, and then we'll hear from you. And this one involves Anthony Fauci and a subpoena for his booty. Here's this story. Anthony Fauci is not out yet. Now we have a state subpoena coming for him. And it's emerging out of Florida, and they're asking for some very interesting things. We know that Fauci's pardon only covers him for his federal crimes, and Biden extended that all the way back to 2014 before Fauci came out and invoked his Fifth Amendment rights 111 times. But that doesn't mean he can't be prosecuted down by a state AG. Been looking for action on this, and here it is. Coming from AG James Uthmeier, now today announcing subpoenas, saying he wants to investigate a couple of different things, and he's also teaming up with more states called West Virginia and Louisiana on this investigation. And so hopefully more states jump in on this based on what Fauci and his conspirators did to America. Now, here's the announcement. He issued an investigative subpoena to Fauci looking into awards, professional opportunities, financial incentives, grants, COVID guidance, and more that impacted Florida, businesses, and their consumers. He said, you know, government officials have a certain level of immunity in their official capacities. True. But if Fauci personally profited off the guidance he issued, that could have broken Florida law. His diary focused more on self-promotion than the legitimate safety concerns of the mRNAs. And while Fauci was pushing for book deals, awards, and fortune and fame, Floridians were being deceived and harmed by his misrepresentations. And Fauci apparently made a trip down there to push the jab. I think he was down with Dr. Jill Biden in 2021, right after Joe Biden came in. Get your shots. Now, another AG called John McCuskey said Fauci's recent refusal to answer Congress's questions about his actions during the pandemic is concerning, I'll say. The American people deserve to know if they or their elected leaders were misled or manipulated, and both my office and I support the Florida AG's efforts to uncover the truth. And then in Louisiana, we got the public deserves answers about 1 million questions related to the pandemic, its origins, and the government's actions in response, said Liz Murill from Louisiana. What we know already is Fauci lied. We just don't know how much yet, but he lied about something as basic as keeping a diary, and so the truth will come out. Now, the subpoena is being informed by the recent public release of diary entries attributed to Fauci by Rand Paul. Those entries detail substantial awards, including an approximately $900,000 Dan David Foundation Prize, an NIAID research grant to the University of Florida Scripps Biomedical Research Florida program, offers of named professorships and book deals, board positions, private foundation partnerships, and other professional and financial opportunities concurrent with his role, and public recommendations, all impacting Florida. And so we want the production of documents from January 3rd through the present, and we want them by August 31st, 2026. So get it, Fauci, and give them to us. Here's what they want. Any awards applied for, considered, or received by any organization, including for-profit or nonprofit orgs in Florida related to COVID. The NIAID research grant in 22, to the University of Florida to address COVID. The $900,000 award received by the Dan David Foundation, including the application. We want the reasons for the award. We want related communications, any professional opportunities that were offered to him, pursued, or considered, including named professorships, book deals, memoir contracts, including with Penguin Random House, literary agents, board positions, related negotiations and comms. We want efforts seeking financial incentives for himself, including discussions, any emails, text messages, and more with private foundations, offers to develop funds for legal bills, support for additional appropriations and other similar matters. Also, interactions and communications with Florida businesses, media outlets, communities about COVID-19 vaccine sites, social distancing, mask requirements, school and business closures, vaccine safety and efficacy, and related responses. All documents, finally, about vaccine efficacy and boosters, natural immunity, potential adverse events, including myocarditis, messaging strategies, and communications with vaccine manufacturers. And so this action reinforces AG Uthmeier's commitment to transparency and accountability regarding activities that may have influenced the health, safety, and economic well-being of Floridians. And so now going out, we got 3 AGs circling the wagons on this. So Florida, West Virginia, and Louisiana, we should have about another 22 or 23 of them joining in. Hopefully this shakes something loose. Here is the AG saying exactly what he's up to, courtesy of his appearance this afternoon on with Fox.
Because here now is the Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier. He's got a big announcement that he's sharing with us about his investigation of Dr. Anthony Fauci. Mr. Attorney General, you got the floor. What are you doing?
That's great to be here. Well, just about an hour or two ago, we issued a formal subpoena to Dr. Fauci under Florida state law, seeking a breadth of documents ranging to what he knew, when he knew it, his doubts about the safety and efficacy of vaccines that he's out there promoting. And we're really focused in on his self-dealing. Evidence has come to light that he was trying to personally profit off of this. This is outside of his government duties, his official role. He's trying to pursue book deals, awards, get connected with high rollers that, might help him come into millions and millions of dollars. This is wrong, and it could go towards a deceptive trade practice, fraud, public nuisance, you name it. I think there's many aspects of Florida law that now are implicated.
So what's the evidence that you're pointing out here?
Well, a lot of it, he revealed himself in this diary. We've got communications, emails with subordinates where he's asking them to help work on applications for these awards. We know one award in particular, he made $900,000 on that. Again, this is separate and independent from his government salary. Right. So here, government officials, they have a lot of immunities. They have protections when they're doing their job. But when somebody like Dr. Fauci is lying and deceiving the American people, pushing out directives and mandates that he privately questions as unsafe, and he's deriving a profit from it, that raises larger legal questions.
So let me drill down on this $900,000 award, because that's a big chunk of change. I assume that money would have gone back into government research? Am I right? Or
not necessarily, and that's part of why we issue subpoenas. We need to gather discovery and evidence in Florida. We want to seek accountability. A lot of people were hurt and suffered, but we respect procedure, rule of law. We will get to the bottom of it. We will leave no stone unturned, and we want to find out at the end of the day, was he pursuing profit? Or was he trying to protect the people of Florida? And his diary, it screams of fame and fortune. He's doubting the risks of myocarditis. He's frustrated that Florida is not following his directives, so much so that he traveled down, he did news hits, radio hits, he went down with Jill Biden. All the while, we now know privately he has a lot of doubts about safety.
Well, I can tell you, as somebody who nearly died from the booster, I had a lot of doubts about the safety of the vaccine as well.
Whoa.
You saw Lucas Tomlinson allude to it just a second ago. Aaron Rodgers, football quarterback, went off on Dr. Fauci after Fauci invoked the Fifth Amendment 111 times during his congressional testimony. Listen here.
Absolute coward.
Yeah. Eric's back, baby.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, 111
You
times.
got a pardon and you're in front and you pleaded over 100 times at the White House? What are you scared of, Tony?
Yeah.
I thought you were the science.
Yeah.
So Fauci's attorney David Schertler responded this way. Aaron Rodgers doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, he
Schertler told The
does.
Athletic on Fauci's behalf he should stick to football. Where do you come down to that?
Well, I think a lot of athletes have reason to be concerned. You had very healthy people in top peak performance falling down on courts across the country shortly after receiving these vaccines. We now know that Dr. Fauci doubted whether or not it was a good thing for children and young people, but he nevertheless publicly pushed for it. So I appreciate Aaron Rodgers speaking up on it, but whether he's going to stick to just football or not, I'm going to focus on the law. That is my job in Florida. I'm going to fight for our citizens.
I'm sure you watched the testimony with Fauci on Capitol Hill in both the House and the Senate, invoking the Fifth Amendment 111 times after, as Aaron Rodgers pointed out,
that's right,
insisting through all of the COVID pandemic and the lockdowns and the mandates that he was the science. Listen to him. When somebody who says repeatedly, I am the science, won't talk about it, what does that say to you?
He's a liar.
Shows me he's got something to hide. He's worried. When you get a presidential blanket pardon, that should provide immunity where you can talk, you can explain your reasoning, you can explain the research. But I think his diary makes clear he was not confident in that research. He doubted it. He doubted it the entire time, but he didn't reveal that publicly. No, he was focused on the mandates and the lockdowns because that would sell. That would help him get the book deal, the agents he wanted to meet. That would help him win awards and fame and fortune. So we have a lot of concerns in Florida. We're going to investigate. If he has violated state law, we will hold him accountable.
Well, there was a huge battle between Florida and the federal government during, over the COVID mandates, the mask mandates, the lockdowns, the vaccine mandates. Fauci did visit the state a few times with Joe Biden, I believe. You're looking into what might have transpired during the time that he was there?
We are. Certainly there's personal jurisdiction over him. He came down many times to advocate for mandates. In the diary, he expresses his frustration that Governor DeSantis is not following in line. He's pushing common sense. And we were right in COVID. We were right. Florida has come out, the free state of Florida, ranked #1 in almost every meaningful category because we fought back.
So at the moment, this is a civil case. Do you think it could lead to
starts
prison?
as a civil inquiry, but we're going to tie in all aspects of Florida common law, things ranging from deceptive trade, fraud, public nuisance. Nothing is off the table. Where you have lies and dishonesty that result in people getting hurt, and a lot of people got hurt. This is one of the largest evidences of harm in human history. And if he's personally profiting off of that outside from his government role, he could have problems.
All right. Well, we'll stay in touch and we'll see where all of this goes. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, it's nice to see this. Not only is it the right thing to do because of a thing called justice, but I think it's also politically expedient as well. A lot of people are not going to forget what Fauci did to them. They're still suffering the consequences or still missing their loved ones. And so it's nice to see AGs finally getting into the game on this, since Fauci wouldn't be honest about what he had done. All he had to do was come out and explain the science and address his prior actions for which he was pardoned, and he didn't even have the courage to do it. So now we've got action at the state level, and we are thrilled to see it. But Rand is also going to be attempting to get Congress to refer him over for contempt. He said now the resolution is available for our enjoyment, and made the announcement this week saying we're going to vote on a resolution to hold him in contempt of Congress, saying he appeared under subpoena and invoked his Fifth Amendment to refuse answering questions. During the hearing, I ruled the Fifth Amendment did not apply because of the pardon, and that Fauci had waived any remaining privilege giving opening testimony. So I ordered him to answer, and I warned him about contempt, but he still refused. That is obstruction of a congressional investigation. The committee will act accordingly, and so the resolution will be presented on Thursday, and hopefully it passes. But remember, this is the same pattern that we saw with guys like Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. They invoked a privilege. They said, we have executive privilege to not testify. Congress sat in judgment, made a ruling, said your privilege does not apply. We don't have evidence to support your right to not speak. And they voted Bannon and Navarro to be held in contempt. They got prosecuted. They went to prison. It's the same thing. It's just a different actual privilege. And so Fauci waived it, and he was also pardoned for it. And now the contempt proceeding will advance. And so here's what is ultimately being presented. This resolution coming out of the Senate would authorize the president of the Senate to certify the report from the committee about the refusal of Fauci to answer questions pertinent to the subject under inquiry before the committee is required by the committee subpoena. Now, here, whereas the Committee of Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs is conducting an investigation, among other matters, into risky life sciences and research about the origins of the vid. And pursuant to the standing rules, we issued a subpoena directing Fauci to get his butt over here on July 29th. In a letter from the committee chairman accompanying the subpoena, Fauci was instructed that he was there to talk and provide testimony about COVID, risky life science research, and his tenure as a federal government employee. Then in July, the committee issued a revised subpoena saying, "You're coming here." Then on July 29th, Fauci did appear and delivered prepared testimony, did talk, discussing his tenure as a federal government employee, prior testimony to Congress, and records released by the committee as part of its investigation. So he was kind of actually speaking to the subjects of the subpoena. Then he concluded his prepared testimony by stating his intent to refuse to answer questions, citing his right against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment. But Fauci was knowingly provided a full and unconditional pardon for any offenses against the United States, which he may have committed or taken part in going all the way back to January 1st, 2014, through the date of this pardon, signed by Otto Penn, related to basically anything that he did in the government. Director of NIAID, member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, member of the White House COVID response team, or as chief medical advisor to the president. And upon being asked questions that were pertinent to the inquiry, Fauci refused to answer them and again cited the Fifth Amendment. We had at the very end, Rand Paul came out and said explicitly, "Your privilege under the Fifth Amendment is unsupported as applied to the questions here because we were only asking you about the pardon, and I now direct you to answer." And if that wasn't good enough, you also waived your right to claim the privilege as a result of your opening statement. You can't speak and then say, "I can't speak," on the subject matter pertinent to the questions under the inquiry. Which is why when he was asked about the carpet and the color of a tie, he didn't speak, because if he would have spoken, it would have been a waiver and something that would have retracted his Fifth Amendment privilege. So now Chairman Paul, having overruled the privilege, we directed Fauci to answer the questions put to him by the committee in order to provide testimony to what we're investigating. And we warned Fauci that he may be held in contempt, but he continued to refuse to answer. And so now, under the law, pursuant to sections 102 and 104, the president of the Senate shall certify the report of the committee and detail the refusal of Fauci to answer questions pertinent to the subject under inquiry. Refer this baby over to the United States Attorney for the District of Columbia to the end that Fauci be proceeded against in the manner and form provided by law, and indict him so that he can serve at least the same penalty as Bannon and Navarro did, which is 4 months in prison. And he can think about his Fifth Amendment rights over there. So Rand Paul says, we're also looking into other people. It's not just Fauci. How about guys like Bill Gates, saying there are many people that I'd also like to bring in for questioning on this, including Bill Gates, whose ambitions include unearthing dangerous viruses and making them more transmissible to humans. I want to know about his government clearance and about his foundation and more. And so here's Rand. And so this is not over yet.
You've talked about Bill Gates. Is he someone you'd like to talk to? He was in high-level meetings shaping America's COVID policy. You also, after last week's hearing, mentioned other people surrounding Fauci that you would be calling in potentially to the Hill.
We're going to call his assistant, who said she deleted a lot of his records. As far as Bill Gates, I think the most important thing we've learned so far is that he wants to find and identify all the viruses in the world. It sounds noble at first, sounds like it might even be a good idea until you think about it. So if a virus is buried 300 feet underground in bat guano, 15 hours away from a major city in China, does it make sense to take a virus that doesn't interact with humans very often and bring it to a city of 15 million people? So I think that idea of Bill Gates is a bad one. But they do more than that. They take the virus to Wuhan, and then they mix and match parts of that virus with other viruses, and then they try to infect humanized mice. This whole procedure can train or push the evolution of a virus towards infecting humans. So they call it virus identification, but in the end, it has elements of gain of function and is actually very dangerous.
Yeah, and they should all be investigated for what they did. And as we heard, Bill Gates was also apparently paying and funding the NIH, the NIAID, and was even asking Fauci to edit his memos. And Fauci did, like a good little, So we're excited to see what happens. Very nice resolution, regardless of what happens in the Senate and what the DOJ decides to do with it. We also have the fact that we've got 3 AGs now issuing subpoenas over to Fauci for answers about all of the benefits that he received as a result of him shilling remedies to a problem that he caused. And so we're going to keep our eye on this story until Fauci's in jail. Thank you for joining us and subscribing as we do. And holy moly, I want to call out Ray K in the house for sending the biggest super chat I think I've ever seen in my life. Ray, thank you, man. We're going to come back on that one and read your comments because they're hilarious. But Ray K just sent in a gigantic donation. And Ray, we love you for that. We're going to read your comment here in a second, but I couldn't contain myself any longer. That's amazing, man. Thank you so much for sending that in. I don't even know what to say. Extremely generous of you, and we love you. Thank you for doing that. And so we'll come back to your comments here in a second, but my goodness, thank you, Ray. We also have a quick recap. Today, we talked about the White House releasing a whole trove of documents, and we read through them because it articulates just what a scam operation the Russia collusion hoax actually was. We've got the reminder that Trump fired Comey. They put together and declassified a bunch of documents courtesy of John Solomon. We took a look at the actual FBI documents. We then read through the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. And it was like a slobbering love fest where he admits that, there really is no there. And that's the mark of a brilliant mind, Lisa. Come over and sleep with me. No wonder that guy blocked me on X, because we make him look pathetic, because he is. Not even hard. So then we read through this interview summary by Barnett. And in it, the entire document, this FBI agent is saying the whole thing was weaponized. There was no there. He was objecting at every turn, but they kept moving forward. We took a look at Brennan's actual documents where he wrote in handwriting that this was all approved by Hillary Clinton. And then Jake Tapper every night said, it's Trump-Russia collusion, Trump-Russia collusion, everywhere we looked. And then we heard, did we hear from Solomon? I don't think we did. Here's a little bit.
Yeah. The people who approved this were working directly for that commander-in-chief. The people who wrote the memo are James Baker, then the FBI general counsel, and then Bill Priestap, then the counterintelligence chief for the FBI, Pete Strzok's boss. The people it is sent to for approval are Rod Rosenstein, the acting attorney general for all things Russia, the deputy attorney general for everybody else, and the acting FBI director, Andrew McCabe, who takes over for James Comey after James Comey's fired. Now, let's go through that chain, because once that referral is made, once Oxford referral is sent to Rosenstein and McCabe, the next day, Robert Mueller is named a special counsel. Rod Rosenstein names a special counsel to investigate the possibility that Donald Trump engaged in obstruction of justice as a Russian agent because he fired James Comey. Now, you have to pause there. That in and of itself is an amazing string of events. But we have to add something to it that maybe our readers and our viewers have forgotten. Rod Rosenstein is the person who fired James Comey. He wrote the firing memo. He knows at that time, when he takes Oxford, and upsizes it to Bob Mueller, that they didn't fire James Comey because of the Russia collusion case. They fired James Comey because he violated department rules when he closed down the Hillary Clinton email case. The man upsizing this is the man that knows it's not true.
Wild. All right, so we did not cover that at the show, but we got to hear it. We then talked about a Minnesota lawsuit. So they're suing the Minnesota secretary for now trying to basically insurrect the city's election rights. The city wants voter rolls and rosters that are on paper. The city says, no, you have to use electronic rosters. Now they're going up to the Supreme Court of the state of Minnesota, and we're excited to see what Minnesota does. This has all the right people very mad about this. Mark Elias and the Democracy Docket are saying they're trying to interfere with the election by writing it down on paper. Okay, that's how bad it is. So then we heard from Rick Scott, and Mike Lee says there's some movement on the SAFE Act. So we're going to continue to hope. Then we talked about subpoenas going out to Fauci. We got 3 AGs, which is great. I think this is a great development. Now saying we're going to subpoena Fauci's booty for some more documents. We heard from Uthmeier himself. We also saw that Rand was out with the actual resolution that will be presented tomorrow in the Senate for the contempt proceedings, and heard from Rand as well that they want other people to come in here until they get to the bottom of this. But now, my friends, it is time to hear from you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing the show with a friend or family member, and we're grateful to have you here. And thank you, Ray K, for this gigantic donation. I think this is the biggest one that we've ever seen. I didn't even know you could send that amount through YouTube. Wild, dude. You're amazing. Thank you for that. I don't even know what to say. So we got some other comments, and then we're going to see what I'm talking about with Ray here in a minute. But here's a couple that came in to kick things off on the day. Comey Island High Detention Lounge. What is this? Comey Island High. It kind of looks like James Comey when he's writing his novels about FBI agents. Oh, he should be in prison. Jeffrey Adams. Hey, Rob, FYI, Texas judge just declared the NFA unconstitutional. Federal judge. That's the Second Amendment case, right? I think I saw that headline. I think I have that bookmarked somewhere. Thank you, Jeffrey Adams, for flagging that. I didn't look too hard into that one. I saw it come through lately right before we went live. So the National Firearms Act, right? I think is what that was, or some Second Amendment case, which is good news. I think it was a good news outcome. I didn't read it, but Jeffrey Adams, thanks for flagging it for us. We may come back on that one tomorrow. We'll have to see. But thank you, Jeffrey Adams, for the donation. Chris Kinsey, I got a flat tire today. My liberal friend said it was Trump's fault, but I told him it was most likely climate change. But yeah. Remember the Obama meme, like, thanks, Obama, for everything, which he was responsible for a lot of devastation in every manner of living. So, Chris, hopefully you got that tire changed. No problem. I'm sure you did. And it's nice for you to be friends with liberals. You have good patience. I'm sure they didn't help you with changing the tire, though. John Lynn, what's up? Hey, keep bringing the truth. Hope you and the family are well. 30 months is one of your UK supporters. John Lynn, man, shout out. First of all, thank you for being here for 30 months. Thank you for being here from the UK. Shout out. It's the UK, right? The United Kingdom. It's like, you know how people say the Ukraine? And it's like, you don't say the Ukraine. It's just they're from Ukraine. Your UK supporter, thank you for watching from the UK. I think that's appropriate, right? John, thank you for that, my man. And shout out. We got some other friends from the UK. I think Rai T's from there. I think I saw Rai T in the chat too. Wonder if you guys know each other. But what's up, John? Thank you, man, for being here for 30 months. You're amazing. Chris, hey, Chris, thanks for bringing in 10 members. We had an early members only stream this morning. We talked about, what did we talk about? Oh, the Trump golf course plot. So we read through the documents. He was charged with felonies in California. Then he had his appearance in federal court today. And then we also talked about, an FBI agent got arrested. That was a pretty wild story. This FBI agent got arrested for stealing about $1 million in crypto, then had a complete nervous breakdown, confessed to everything, and they arrested him. And now he's been charged. So he's got a tough road ahead, but at least he confessed. He gets a little bit of a bonus on that one, but it was an interesting case. We read through that complaint as well. Chris, thanks for bringing our friends in. Jukebox, what's up? Me, Shelly, Shell, welcome. Brenda Moore, what's up? Law RN, Texas. We got Randall S. Gregory, what's up? Bean Killer. We got Oki Soko, Rose Wallace, Circayan, and Om M. Shabazz in the house. And Chris Kinsey, Flat Tire Climate Change Extraordinaire. Thanks for bringing in 10 new members. You're amazing. And I think we may do Fauci in the morning. So we may not have a members only stream in the morning. We may come back and do the Senate hearing in the morning. My wife is extremely pregnant. And so it also depends on what's happening inside that belly. So we'll have to see. So thank you for that, Chris Kinsey. We appreciate that. Sharpie guy, what's up? Hey, listening to this, its peculiarity, Rob. They took on the wrong guy. Couldn't they have accomplished their goal of taking down Trump if they went instead after Pence? Pence didn't have the charisma or nearly the bank Trump has. Or am I totally off base in my thinking, Rob? And hey, by the way, you're going to be parents pretty soon, and that's going to be awesome. Tell me about it, Sharpie guy. Blessings, Gouveias, and watchers all. Blessings back to you, Sharpie guy. Thanks for the nice comment. So I think, Trump is a threat because he doesn't fit the template. Like Pence, Pence is like Bush or something. It's going to do whatever the entire deep state wants them to do. Trump's an anomaly. Trump's not like all of the others. So that's why they couldn't have him in there. First of all, he was kind of like a class traitor. Like there's a political dynasty that's supposed to happen in America. It's like you got, Clinton, then it's got to be Hillary, then it's got to be Bush, then it's got to be Jeb Bush. Obama was a little bit of an anomaly, but not really. He was also part of the establishment. They just needed somebody who didn't look like a white guy, so they put him in there. So it's all just kind of one giant chain. Trump kind of broke the chain. Like he was not supposed to be there. He's a billionaire and all the things, but he's not part of that class. So they needed to get rid of him. And I think if they would have gone after Pence, it would have been really inconsequential. So Trump needed to be the main target. They tried to throw him off the, election, the ballots, and put him in prison and more. He was the main target. If they could have gone after Pence to get Trump, I think they could have done that. But they really wanted Trump out, and I think they probably would have been happier with Pence because he would have just been a known quantity, in other words. Call me legend. Hey, any guesses how many times Comey has lied since 2015? A lot. Yeah, a lot. I can't put a number on it, but definitely lied about the Steele dossier. And the statute of limitations on that one expired, unfortunately. We were pounding the table about that. Actually, he got charged. Remember, he got charged for lying. And then that was the one brought by Lindsay Halligan. That's still up on appeal, I believe. And they basically dismissed that indictment. They said that she was illegally appointed. And so that one went out. So at least one officially on the books, and he got charged for that. But then the judges threw it all out because that's what they do. So, but that was just the first one. And then I think he lied probably at least half a dozen times on the leaked media leaks because the FBI kept having their information show up in multiple media newspapers and articles all over the nation. And then they said, where's this information coming from? We have no idea. Turns out it was literally the FBI director. And once they investigated themselves, we don't know where it's coming from. We have no intelligence at all. We can't figure it out. So thank you for that. Call me legend. We will. Hey, one old guy, man. Thank you for this big dono as well. One old guy. Comey reads off every element of Hillary's violation of U.S. code regarding servers, destruction of phones and evidence, and then says no reasonable prosecutor would bring this to court. Just like they did it with Joe Biden. It's the same pattern. Weird. But with Trump, they'll literally make up charges. They'll engineer a spreadsheet crime and then charge him accordingly. Democrat Socialist Party, there may be moderates, but Democrat have never been moderates. No, I think that's right. They like to LARP as that, like they're these fair, independently minded, neutral, academics who are just, interested in the good stewardship of society. They're not. They're just communists. And they can't admit it, or they have not been able to admit it, but that's ultimately what they are. I think many of them have an animosity to a certain ethnicity, and they just couch that in something called diversity. Diversity of what? Well, away from white people. That's what we want. Too many of you, we don't like you, so we want to diversify all this so that you don't really exist anymore. So it's diversity, which is a cover for racism, or it's climate change, which is a cover for redistribution of wealth because your light bulbs aren't to their satisfaction. So you got to change those things and turn your air conditioning down or up, depending on where you are. And ultimately, acquiesce to the state controlling your life, including what electricity you can use. So it's all just a big, gigantic cover. All of those things are just extensions of communism. And you can, pick any additional vertical that they launder their ideology under, and it's all the same. One old guy, thank you for the nice donation. Hey, Sandy, I think the declassification on this Oxford comma is because it's being used in the Florida case right now. 100% they wrote that in there. Sandy, you may have been ahead of the class on that, but we literally showed that line, right? It's literally in here. And where was that? We saw it in here. I just highlighted it. The memos are being released as the federal prosecutors in Florida reportedly investigate whether they did all of this. Okay, so that is ongoing. This is the surest sign that we have that this is actually advancing, which is really good news. So this, they would have to declass before showing a jury. This is the bird's eye view of what is happening in the grand jury case. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And that's a great point. And I think that, again, as we suspected, maybe these charges will come after the midterms and we'll start to see some real juicy business happening. We'll have to see. Sandy, good call on that. Hey, thank you for that. One old guy. Here's a prediction. The midterms will flip one house. That would be great. A very treasonous rhino will roadblock Trump. DSP will be put into power. Republicans will not hold an office of power. USA falls and UN, WEF, and WHO take control of everything. Well, dang, man. Oh, I see. Midterms will flip one house like Congress or the Senate. I thought you meant like one House seat, which would mean the Republicans would still maintain control of the House. So not the House. Yeah, we want to keep the House and the Senate. As angry as we are with the Republicans in Congress, still it's better than the alternative. And a lot of this gets measured against perfection, right? Which I think is the improper measurement. Trump admin versus perfection. You're going to have a disappointment there, okay? Because he's not a perfect person. So there's going to be a disappointment. Congress too, okay? It's going to be, if you measure it against perfection, it's not going to be perfect. So we'll be disappointed. But if you measure it against Kamala Harris or against the DSA or against, the Democratic Party, then it's like a tremendous Disneyland experience without the pedophilia. It's great. So we have to keep that in mind. But yeah, I think ultimately that's really what a lot of them want is kind of a global community. America has no borders. There's no border patrol. It's just one giant economic zone and a certain class of people have to pay for everybody else, even though they already do. And it's, the downfall of the United States, which is why we cannot allow that to happen. There is no alternative, okay? There's no place to go. What other nation can you name one that has the First Amendment? Answer, zero. There aren't any. It's us. So we have to fight, and we will, and we're going to continue to do that. Thank you, one old guy, for helping support that. One old guy, my last prediction. We see Jesus come in our lifetime. Man, that'd be wild. Shout out. Shout out to Jesus. Pray that you and yours are not cast into the lake of fire. I know I am. What's going on over there, old guy, today? You're like blackpilling over there. Yeah. Get right with Jesus. That's good advice in general. But we do pray that nobody is cast into the lake of fire because they develop a personal relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Thank you for that, one old guy. We're going to save America, okay? We're going to get the cost of burritos down. We're going to prosecute everybody who needs to be prosecuted. It's a generational fight. We're going to win. So thank you for those, one old guy. Hey, Super Buff Shaft is here. What's up, Super? Rob, if the people can't even learn and get justice for Arizona, illegally certifying 2020 and running 120K ballots later to make the counts match Jovan Pulitzer's audit, then nothing will fix this. It's true. We've got our work cut out for us. It's true. We got our work cut out for us. Eventually, things are either going to break, and when they break, there will be a tremendous amount of reform, or we can make slow incremental improvements. But you're right. There are some pretty serious problems out there. And I'm going to reach out to Jovan. He tagged me over the weekend asking about a debate or something, and I was like, I think I agree with you on everything. So how can we debate when I agree with you? So I'm gonna have to reach out to him. I haven't done that yet. I want to get some stuff scheduled, but I can't really get anything scheduled if this baby pops out. I don't want to have to move a bunch of stuff around. But I do want to get Joe Vaughn on for an interview so that we can talk through some things. He had a funny tweet. He's like, will you debate? You know, he listed a bunch of people. Will you debate us? I'm like, well, how could I debate you? I agree with everything you're saying. I don't even know, I don't know exactly what he believes on each specific issue, but it was just kind of a funny comment. But anyways, Super Buff Shaft. We have to continue to wake people up. I think at some point when people realize that, they're just kind of churning their wheels, spinning their wheels on these things, there will become a point, and it might actually get worse before it gets better, where we have like a takeover of the communists, and then that causes things to really break, and then there's a full resurgence and essentially like a resurrection, because that's the cyclical kind of life cycle of nation states and the body politic. It's like a body. You've got birth, you've got adolescence, you've got maturity, and you've got death, and we just circle around and around and around. And, there's a lot of analysis on this, that we're kind of reaching the point that really started in the 1970s. That's now reaching the crescendo in the 2020s. And we're here. We're in the thick of it. So we've got work to do, but we're going to stay on it. Thank you, Super Buff Shaft. We've got one nation. We have to continue to fight. If you don't at least engage, then you get out of the game and you cede the territory to the other side. And maybe that needs to happen so that things get worse before they get better, so that people get animated again and realize why liberty is so important. But Super Buff, thank you for the nice donation. Thanks for watching on Rumble as well. You're amazing. Hey, HWIH in the house. Thanks for rating the stream. You're amazing. We appreciate you joining us. Shout out to all of our HWIH friends who just joined us. JP Milligan, thank you for becoming a supporter. We had a good members only stream this morning. I think tomorrow we may try to go live across the board for the Rand hearing, but maybe not. We'll have to see what the baby schedule looks like. So TBD on that. Thanks for turning your notifications on. But JP, grab the stream from this morning. It should be a good one. G-Man, huge win, ruling parts of the NFA are unconstitutional now that they have a 0% tax. That's the one I was thinking of, the National Firearms Act. That came out of Texas, huh? Amazing. Yeah, so I was scrolling through that one, but I did not actually dig into it. G-Man, thank you for the donation and the flag on that. We'll have to revisit that one. And this is what I'm talking about. Ray K in the house, man. You are so generous. We are so thankful. Thank you for supporting our show here and our efforts and our new baby. All of it going to baby food and diapers. And so we're grateful for that. I don't think we've ever seen a donation like that. I think maybe we have, but I didn't realize, man, that you can actually donate that much on YouTube. You're extremely generous. We're extremely grateful. I really don't even know what to say other than thank you. We appreciate you being here. And we'll make sure we put it to a good use like Apu is doing right here. And Ray K says, you have to call the baby Ray K now with that dono. Pretty much. Yeah, middle name or something, right? Middle name Ray K in the house for funding the baby's entire diaper stipend for the first 10 years. Ray, I don't think they'll be in diapers for 10 years, but Ray K, man, once again, thank you for that. Thank you for the hilarious comment and for being a member for 54 months. And did you send that from different accounts? Hilarious, man. So again, really awesome. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. I can't wait to tell Alexis. And we appreciate that. So got to call the baby Ray K. Uncle Ray K in the house. Thank you again, Ray. 54 months as a member as well. Really, really appreciate you being here. What's going on, King of Biltong? Hey, skip the gas station junk food. While traveling, pack Biltong from Biltong USA. Clean protein packed, grass-fed, air-dried beef with great flavor. Go to BiltongUSA.com and use code Robert and you'll save 10% off and get your delicious meats delivered to your door. Hey, Dominion After Dawn. And what's up, Biltong? Hopefully you're selling some serious meat. Hey, Dominion After Dawn. Thank you for rating the stream as well. Shout out to our Dominion After Dawn friends, hopefully sticking around, enjoying the show. We appreciate you being here. And the Rubos, man, good to see the Rubos are back. Donald and Cheryl Lynn Rubo in the house. And of course, as we know, Donald was just in the hospital, just had some surgery. Looks like back and at it. And many of you sent prayers in for this amazing family because they are amazing. They are prayer warriors. And so it was an honor to be able to pray back for them. And here is the return. Hey, thank you, Watcher family. We are eternally grateful for your prayers, well wishes, and kindness and support. We love each and every one of you. Can't tell you how much each one of you means to us. Words cannot express. Not back fully here, but it lifts our spirits to listen to Rob's live streams and read the comments. As Londo called it, we're lurking. And so prayers up for Rob, Alexis, and Baby G. And you can see the rest of that comment right here from the Rubos. Great news, Rubos. Thanks for lurking. Hopefully you're healing up. We know that was a big one, but our prayers continue to be with you for your recovery. And we're just glad to hear an update. So get well soon. We'll have you back in full when you're back in full. Otherwise, my friends, you know where to go. RubosSaltShop.com. Get yourself some salt and enjoy it on your biltong. Salt up your biltong if you need to do it. So awesome, Rubos. Thank you for the update, and amazing to have an update from you. We also want to see if we got any comments on locals, and then we'll wrap it up. Oh, it's a different person. Okay, so we got two Ray K's in the house. So the two different people, so it's not the same person. So it's RK Ray K is a separate person. So RK Ray K, thank you for the nice donation. I don't even think I know who you are, but we're really grateful. So thanks again, RK Ray K in the house. You're amazing. We appreciate that. Let's see if we got any other comments over here. And we do. Barry, hey, happy Wednesday, Rob. Things are beginning to unwind. Accountability is all I ask. Why? All my life, I've been accountable and been held accountable. Me too. And it would be good if that was a principle that existed across our society, wouldn't it? Hey, what's up from Nathan? What's up, Nathan? Yeah, there's that one, man. Bunch of shout outs on that one. That was out of Texas, huh? The National Firearms Act of 1934 is unconstitutional. Man, that's amazing. Wow. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. The guy who just got arrested in Trump's California case was just charged with a short-barreled rifle and a short-barreled shotgun. Interesting. So he may make that argument and get that charge dismissed. Nathan, have you considered renaming your place in D.C. the Classified Annex? No, but I like it. That's pretty good. The Classified Annex here in Washington, D.C., broadcasting live from the Classified Annex here. Hey, it's Jake Sullivan. Oh, speaking of the devil. Said it was probably Jake Sullivan. That's what I said. We haven't heard from Jake Sullivan. Okay, he went to Oxford. He's much smarter than I am, so he's here. He's in our community. He said, well, Rob, if you had seen the evidence I saw, you would have done the same thing. Where did the evidence come from? That doesn't matter. That's not what the subject matter was. The subject matter at the time was looking at these 400 pictures of Trump in Russia, holding a Russian newspaper with date front and center in front of a bank with a digital sign displaying the same date and time as he and Putin traded drugs and weapons like Pokemon cards with pallets of cash next to them, and they held signed contracts of illegal deals. I mean, it was crazy how much evidence we had in one location. Yeah, so they're all there. It's like this orgy of evidence all just splayed out. And then Jake Sullivan found it. Weird. And then all of a sudden had everything that they needed to open up multiple investigations into the president. Thank you, Jake, for clarifying and dumbing it down for those of us who didn't go to Oxford. We appreciate you being here. Here's another one. Here's the indictment that Rand Paul files on Fauci for your enjoyment. Nathan, boom, you nailed it, man. Yep, we just read that, baby. And Rand Paul also has it on his website, and hopefully the contempt vote goes on tomorrow. Hey, The Veil, talking about babies. Can babies in the womb have imaginations? You have to wonder. Probably. I think they're probably doing something going on in there. This was something I read in a magazine. Now, imagine for a moment that baby G looked up and stuck its tongue out, and then a sonic boom went by. The two sonic booms happened back to back and moved a full inch. Wow, this is like a physics comment. Rob gets ready to receive baby G with the catcher's mitt. Then baby G hits Mach 10 and launches itself out full speed into the catcher's mitt. And Rob is seated in a chair and rolls backward. And Mama G Alexis is thinking, what the hell just happened? Why did it come out of me like a jet engine? This is interesting. Baby G slowing its pace. Rob uses his father's voice saying baby G in the mitt now. Baby G slows and Rob says baby G now. Baby G lands gently into the mitt and starts cooling like a baby calming down from a fun event. Happy baby G to come. Blessings, much love from See the Veil. Well, See the Veil. It's a very interesting thought experiment. Hopefully it doesn't happen quite that way, but we do want it to come out quickly. Hey, side note from Jake. Rob, why on earth is there 7 internet service being billed to my dad's credit card? Just because I've been extremely busy, I'm still listening every single day. That doesn't mean you can go wild with the bills. Oh, because Jake runs the show. I forgot he took over the show. Well, we need multiple internets so that our internet doesn't go down. It's been better the last few days, right? Plus, I'm trying to get ready to take over the show while you're on maternity leave. I will say you look great, even though you're about to give birth literally any second now. I do. I look pretty slim for having a full child about to come out. Just be sure to tell Alexis that you need to sleep each night, and she needs to keep it down. I'll make sure I tell her that. And the baby, too. We guys pipe down. We've got a show to do in the morning. Thank you, Jake, for the tremendous advice. And we appreciate you being here. But the internet service billing will continue, so make the necessary adjustments. Barry, I told you Gates and Fauci were 2 rats in a foobarred nest. True. Yeah, they were working together. And Michael Swisher, this is huge, man. Yeah, man, multiple comments on that. I should have covered that story. But thank you for that, Michael Swisher. Yeah, really good stuff. We'll have to maybe hit that one in the morning. I don't know how long the contempt vote will go on. Probably not too long. But we'll see. And Ray K, thank you for confirming. I wish I could take credit, but it's a different person. So we got 2 Ray Ks out there, man. And Ray K, thank you for making the comment about calling the baby Ray K on behalf of the other Ray K. Man, you guys looking out for each other. It's really nice of you to do that. Shout out to our Ray Ks. Awesome to have you here. And let's take a look at what else is happening on X. See if we got any final comments. Then we'll wrap it up on the day. I'll go check on my pregnant wife and see what's going on. Hey, Matt Hay. Oh, yeah, I saw this one. Matt Hay on X. Hey, check this out. Check the actual cover. Yeah, Comey posted this in 2017, right after the Oxford comma investigation was opened, saying, I'm all about Oxford commas. Right? We know. And he wrote a stupid little novel about an FBI agent. I read the description. I'm like, is he really writing like the FBI agent is a hero? I think the story, the plot line is like there's a guy like Alex Jones or something, and an FBI agent needs to go stop like radical right-wing extremists. I'm like, oh, you're not even creative. Jack Hudler, what's up, Jack? Thank you for the comment. And of course, Neuro D in the house, sharing our watchingthewatchers.locals.com community. If you want to join up and become a member in a place that is not YouTube, that's a great place to do it. Also, you can join up on YouTube as a new member. Grab our members only morning streams, and we'll see you on the next stream. We do a lot of them because we love hanging out. So, friends, it's been an awesome day and a lovely evening. Thank you for joining us as we navigated the weaponization and lawfare, the election news, and the Fauci criminality. We'll pause here for the evening. We want to thank our tremendous mods and meme smiths. What's up, Muffin Rando? We got John in the house. What's up, Donut Mind Me? Of course, we got K-Bean. We got Neuro D, Janek, Dog Digger, Geegum Geegum, Elliot, and just Rhonda, keeping things nice and orderly out there. And we're glad to have you here. I hope your rest is outstanding. Thanks for watching on Rumble. We got J-Ma over there, hyphen, slightly salty. What's up, Nana Bear? Just the facts, please. Nice to see you. Dominion's over there. What's up, Dominion? And many more. Mother's Evening Dispatch. What's up, Caddy in the house? Duck Fat. Great to see you. What's up? Fix It Fast. Gina Hansen, Just Rhonda, Doan, Holly, Ray Hedrick, Biology. We got C. Reed. We got the Rubos. Have a blessed night. Donut over there. John in the house. Baby Lewis. What's up, Pam? And more. All right, so we'll pause here on the evening. Hopefully, we get some activity tonight in the womb and we get this baby start to emerge on out of there, but we'll pause here for the evening. Once again, RK Ray K, thank you again for the very generous dono. Really, really appreciate that. Really grateful that you're here. Thanks for sending some baby love. And friends, thank you for coming back here tomorrow to join us again, because we'll be getting into it, presumably in the morning at 8:30 with some Fauci contempt, hopeful votes in the affirmative, dropping out repeatedly. But we'll be back to get into whatever the day has in store for us. And so until we are back here, I hope your rest is amazing. Your sleep is outstanding. You have peaceful, pleasant, and beautiful dreams, and you wake up feeling refreshed and ready to return, because in order to do all of this appropriately, we need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful evening. Sleep very, very well. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching, my beautiful friends. Now it's that time where the stream must end. You brought the heat with every chat and line. Together we expose corruption. One more time we dove in the truth where the media hides. Lit up the lies with receipts on all sides. The fight isn't over, but we made them sweat. We ain't done yet, no, not just yet. Because together we are watching the watchers. Truth on our side. Nothing to hide. So drop a like and don't forget to share. And bring a friend who's ready to care. Tomorrow's lies are just today's news, but here we see through the scripted ruse. Together we